Welcome along, everyone, to Sports Bits. We're glad to have you join us for what has been an interesting season and what is going to be a very fast-paced show as we come to the final game of the football season. Champions League final, we saw Manchester City winning their first ever Champions League trophy, and of course was a delight to many football fans. Also to see Burna Boy perform on the world's biggest stage, and of course just to see where Afrobeat has gone to. Of course, not a football show, not a music show rather, a football show in its entirety. Sports Bits has been here for the entire football season. It all started in August when the football season kicked off. Now we've come to the end of it. We also had a World Cup in the middle of it as well, so it's been one heck of a season so far. We're going to take a break now because when we come back, we've got big stories: NPFL winner, Champions League winner, French Open's winner, and much more on Sports Bits. Welcome along, everybody, to Sports Bits, and of course, it is a pleasure to be back on the airwaves. My name is Yubi, and so we've been here for the entire football season, and what a pleasure it is to have you for what has been an interesting couple of weeks here. Joining me on the show as always, Falan Adeni. Falan, it's good to have you here for Sports Bits today, because this is an episode like no other. We've got to announce the Champions League winner, the French Open winner, NPFL winner as well as the NWFL winner. So lots of medals to be hung on the show today. So if you're just joining us for the first time, you're probably in for one of the best episodes of Sports Bits, even if I say so myself. Good to have you here. Let's start off with the NPFL 2023 Super 6 playoff, which pretty much happened in our backyard here, which is one of the perks of living in Lagos, isn't it? Because we got to see the playoffs here at the Mobology Johnson Arena. Well, Enyimba finally being crowned champions. The last time they were crowned champions of the NPFL was back in 2019, and it was in an abridged league format where, of course, they had to play the playoffs as well. And they finished that season as well, third on the table. Same thing with this season. So who says thunder doesn't strike twice?
Definitely, history repeats itself again. And it's always a pleasure to be here on the show to talk about sports. Enyimba, I've always been saying it's my prediction that I expect them. Definitely my number one pick. And if Enyimba doesn't win it, Rivers United definitely going to win it. And at the end of the day, it came down to both teams, whatever they wanted, and it felt like Enyimba knew a draw was going to be okay for them to win the league. And maybe they are lovers of the abridged league. I wouldn't be surprised if when they were making the decision for the abridged league, maybe Enyimba were at the forefront. Okay, let's have an abridged league, just maybe. And 2019 to 2023, 4 years in the wilderness. Finally, they've gotten their hand on the NPFL trophy, the most successful club, in Nigeria. Nine times. Yeah, they've won it. And now I feel they want to play with the big boys. They're back, with the big boys in the CAF Champions League. Yeah. Will they be able to get to the group stage? That is another story entirely. But whatever happens in the preseason, when our league starts, will definitely have an effect on if Enyimba are going to do well, or if Remo Stars are also going to do well in the on the continent. Right.
Talk to me about Rivers United, who of course have been deposed as champions. You mentioned Enyimba back on the continent. I don't think Rivers did too badly this year. Remo Stars also joined them on the continent as well, so that is a pleasure to see. But also, look, in the end, we need a team to crack that Champions League to give the rest a bit of a pull. If there's anybody that could do it, it's Enyimba.
Definitely.
They have the technical know-how with Finidi George, who we've got to give credit to as well. First season wasn't great. Lots of fans in Aba said, look, get him out of the club. He's not experienced enough. Second season is coming and won it. So that tells you about the work he's put in. I've seen a couple of games Enyimba played. I was at their game against Rivers United last week, and I kind of felt like they were just not getting out of the gears. But what they've done so rightly well is get the results when it matters most, and getting the job done.
Exactly. And when they started the season, they were not playing too. At the end of the day, they were able to pull through and get to the Super 6, and that was what happened in the Super 6. It's all about in-game management. I think Finidi George was able to do that, to get that out of the Enyimba boys. They knew what the task was, and they knew that we need to do the job well, and they did the job. They did the job well. If there's anything, just like I said, with the pedigree, with the history that can actually do anything well for Nigeria, I don't disrespect to Remo Stars. We're talking about the CAF Champions League. I think Enyimba is your safest bet, to put your money on. Talking about clubs from Nigeria.
Of course, the name on Enyimba's fans lips. Kene Awazie, who got the only goal for Enyimba in that 1-1 draw with Rivers United. Rivers United, of course, came back with an equalizer courtesy of Yima Wankwa. Couldn't quite go on to win the game, but I got to get the sense that Enyimba won that league courtesy of that 3-0 win against Sunshine Stars on
definitely,
match day
definitely.
So eventually winning the NPFL title on goal difference. Matter of fact, 3 teams finished on 9 points, starting with Enyimba, who topped the table in the Super 6, Rebel Stars in second position, who only lost out on their first NPFL title by goal difference. And of course we saw Rivers United also finishing third on 9 points as well. They'll feel very hard done by with that. Bendel Insurance and Sunshine Stars, about Novi Stars as well, all finishing in those other positions. So it's been a pleasure to cover the league for Sports Space, and of course we're delighted to see what the new season brings. 2 Champions League qualifying teams, Remo Stars and champion Enyimba. Let's get away from that. On the men's division, we've got to touch base with the women's division as well, which is acronym the NWFL. Super 6 as well happened in Asaba, Delta State, and we saw Delta Queens, rightfully so, defend their home territory. And talk to me about how all of this works, because 12 years they've been in the wilderness. We've popularly seen Rivers Angels dominate the league. We've seen Bowser Queens dominate the league. But Delta Queens, who interestingly are one of the teams that were on the continent last season, they've come back and they've done it again.
Yeah, it showed progression in what they've been doing over there in Delta, and that has shown. The result is what we saw over the weekend with them winning the NWFL, and kudos to them. We just need more development for our female football. I mean, that's what everybody is saying all over the world.
I've got to say, one thing I don't like about it is the prize money disparity.
The disparity is so much.
Lead 100 million naira.
Delta Coins 10 million naira. So that further buttresses the point.
That doesn't look good.
How do you want them to develop the league? How do you want them to pay the girls now that played football, or the ladies that played football, administrators? How do you want them to pay them? Kids, training facilities. How do you want them to get that? Even our male football, we are still complaining about it, but then you can see the prize money for the female football. I think if there's one thing that needs to change, I think they need to borrow a leaf from what FIFA did, for the female World Cup. The last World Cup, I think they're getting about 100 times more than what they got at the last World Cup, for the next World Cup happening later this year. And I think we also need to do that. Let's pay more attention to our female football.
To put this in context for our viewers who are watching, the women who are going to play, the Super Falcons who are going to play at the World Cup later this year in New Zealand and Australia, each player would get at the very least 13 million naira if you convert the prize money, 24,000 euros. If you go on FIFA's website, you can see the increments in what the prize money looks like. So, I mean, if one player at the World Cup this year for women, gets 24,000 euros, then an entire team gets 10 million naira, which is less than what one player would get. That's not good enough. And
of course.
It's not good enough on paper. It's not good enough as optics. It's not good enough for the footballing.
Definitely.
And look, we've produced some superstars in this football.
No doubt about that.
Oshola, Ajibade, lots of players, Messi Akide, all these incredible players we produce. The women's football needs more attention, and it has to start happening now.
I think Aisha Falode really needs to, as they will say on the street of Lagos, press the neck of those administrators so they can actually focus their attention also on the female football. She's doing no doubt about that, but more needs to be done for our female football. We don't want to go to the continent and start getting bashed by other teams. I mean, remember Lady Sundowns from South Africa, and also Al-Ahly and Orlando Pirates. Those are strong teams when you talk about female football on the continent. And we also need to be up there. And that can only happen if you pay more attention to our female football. Let's develop it. Let's pump more money. I mean, if you pump money to something, you definitely expect a result from it. So that's what it's needed. That's what we need in our female football.
Well, of course, first title for Delta Queens in 12 years. So good to see them do that. They go on to play in the WAFU Zonal B qualifying championships for the Women's CAF Champions League, which happens later this year in Cote d'Ivoire. All the best to the girls, and we'll be watching them every step of the way for that one. Let's switch base now. We're still in Africa, pretty much. Let's touch on the champions of Africa in the same week as was crowned champions of Europe, Al-Ahly. Beating Wydad Casablanca 3-2 on aggregate. Now, this is a result many saw coming, but Wydad, you've got to say, gave them fight until the very death there. Talk to me about this 11th CAF Champions League trophy. They're pretty much the most successful footballing team on the continent, 147 trophies in total. Nobody's better than Ali.
In the world. I mean, that's the highest a club has won in the world. And one thing about Wydad Casablanca, I don't understand. 2 seasons ago, they were in the CAF Champions League final with Raja Casablanca. Last season, they were in the CAF Champions League final with same Al Ahly of Egypt. Yeah. And this season again, both of them played in the final. And we thought maybe Wydad were going to get the job done. I mean, by virtue of the away goal they scored last week. But somehow, they were able to hold Wydad at home in Morocco. And a great result for them. I think West African teams, and to some extent, maybe East Africa needs to study whatever Wydad, whatever Al Ahly, I mean Morocco and Egypt, whatever they are doing in their league, it needs to be studied. And Nigeria needs to also do that. I mean, how do you play 3 Champions League in a row and you have North African teams, competing in all 3 Champions League? What are they doing differently that we, the rest of Africa, we are not doing?
I'll tell you what they're doing differently. If you go to Morocco, they're building pitches everywhere.
Exactly.
Every 2 or 3 kilometers you go in Morocco, there's a 5-a-side pitch. There's something. If you go to Egypt as well, there are pitches everywhere. I mean, Morocco were wanting to host the Nations Cup at short notice because they've got the facilities there.
Sure.
They've not just got the facilities; they're willing to maintain the facilities. So football is. We grew up in Nigeria watching football on the streets, and we still see football on the streets everywhere you go. Across Lagos, all the crannies and nooks and crannies. You see footballers playing football, but do they have the facilities to play at a good level? Do they get coaching? That's what we need to do. That's how we need to invest in our football. The Super Eagles is a great franchise, for the NFF, and it's a nice shining object. But the moment we realize that until we come away from that 4-year mentality where we're all constantly qualifying for the World Cup, everybody comes out to play AFCON, we need to do more for the grassroots game, and I think that's the way to go. Congrats to Morocco, congrats to Egypt, of course. Congrats to Al Ahly, who are now champions of Africa for the 11th time. What is incredible, a record, 147 trophies across the world, the most in any football club has ever got. Let's get away from that now and pretty much touch base on all the stories. We had to make that dash in African football. Let's get away from that now and touch base with European stuff, but not before we take a break on the show, because we are delighted to wrap up the season here on Sports Base, but not to worry, we've got more sporting activities to cover for the entirety of the year. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll touch base with Champions League winner Manchester City, and what a player, what an athlete is Novak Djokovic, as he now has entered the house that Rafael Nadal built. Welcome back to Sports Bits lovers. Glad to have you join us, and glad to have you stay with us for the entirety of the 30 minutes we've got here on the airwaves as we bring you the biggest sporting stories. I tell you what, we've literally had a blast in the first half of the show with some interesting championship crowns in Africa and Nigeria, and of course we're switching gears to European football now. Falan Adeni is still here with us to take you through the stories. My name is Yubi, and so let's start with the Champions League winner, Manchester City, who became European champions last weekend for the first time in their history. And the owner, Sheikh Mansour, was there to see things for himself. It's only the second game he's attended as Man City's CEO. But talk to me about this project that has now come full circle for Man City. It all started, 11 years ago, thereabout, when the club was acquired. They've gone through a host of Premier League titles, 7. They eventually landed their first Champions League trophy against Inter Milan, who, we've got to say, commiserations to them, had a brilliant game.
Definitely.
For the first time, maybe in a long time, we saw someone outplay Man City, and Man City almost holding on for dear life. 1-0 was the final scoreline. Rodri, goal scorer.
Well, talking about Inter Milan, history is always on their side. I mean, they've been there, they've done it, they've won the Champions League, 2010 under Jose Mourinho. And you knew that, in the Champions League game, once you get a goal, I mean, you can allow your opponent, to have a go at you, and all you just need to do is make sure that you don't concede again. And for a team that lost the Champions League 2021, just two seasons ago, that will still be playing at the back of their mind that we don't want to make mistake again, because it's always difficult to get into that position, regardless of how you want to look at it. Maybe except Real Madrid, by the way, who always find a way to get in the Champions League final. And City knew that they can't bottle this again. They can't bottle this. So we've scored a goal. now let's take our foot off the pedal. Let's sit back. Let's soak pressure. We have the players that can actually soak pressure and eat on the counter. And it goes against everything about Pep Guardiola. But people will say maybe he has changed. Just maybe he has changed.
I always think that to win the Champions League, you need to do what you need to do. And start is not important in the final. You've got to win the final because you go back to Jurgen Klopp against Tottenham a couple of years ago, where they scored the first goal courtesy of a penalty, and that was the game. They pretty much finished it. Scored another goal at the death of the game. They knew from then on they weren't going to go, attacking.
Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly.
Haaland finishing as top scorer. Look, he's the first player under 23 to finish with 2 golden boots. The last player to finish with 2 golden boots before that age was Lionel Messi. He did say he was nervous, very nervous in that game, but he didn't quite. I mean, he's won the Champions League with City, which he was brought in to do, but ultimately, when you look at it, and
the final,
he wasn't the one who won it for them. But can you say that this Champions League is credit to him coming?
Yeah, because if you look at it, it was able to pull them the group stage round of 16, the quarterfinal, but from the semi-final.
But City always qualified. I mean, you mentioned 2 years ago we're in the final, last year semi-final, lost out.
His influence, when opponents know that there's a player up front that we can't take our eyes off him, everybody will be on their toes. You can't commit men too much, and that's what Haaland brings into the team. And even if he doesn't play very well, his presence in the team will definitely be felt. Bullies players, push players there around. And he said they brought him to win the Champions League. If it's about the Premier League, they know how to win the Premier League. And I mean that has happened already, winning the Champions League. I think. He's going to win the Ballon d'Or. I feel he's going to win the Ballon d'Or. I have a strong feeling that he's going to win the Ballon d'Or.
Here's the stats for him: 53 games, 52 goals. Couldn't quite finish with the 100% record.
100% record.
Talk to me about Andre Onana, who we've got to give a special highlight on, and hopefully the producer puts out the clips of his passing, because I don't think I've seen anything like that in football before. We've seen some great ball-playing goalkeepers. We've seen Manuel Neuer, who's probably one of the best to ever do it with his feet, playing out from the back. But what we saw from Onana, to put it in perspective, an African goalkeeper at the biggest stage of his career, taking that level of responsibility. I don't think I've seen anything like that before.
Also, I mean, the closest is Manuel Neuer, just like you said. And Andre Onana, what we saw him at, we knew he was destined for greatness. He should be up there with some of the best teams, in world football. And I think in Milan, they had a steal, when they got him from Ajax after that suspension from FIFA.
And credit to Inter for sticking by him as well.
Exactly. And he has found a way to displace Same Andanovic, as the number one goalkeeper for Inter Milan. And Simeone Inzaghi, kudos to him for putting faith in him. Even when Andanovic came back from injury, he still stuck with Andre Onana, and he has repaid the faith the coach has in him. I don't know if he's going to stay beyond the summer, because we are hearing rumors that clubs are looking at making a move at him. And he told everybody, like definitely. And I mean, he told the press that whatever Inter Milan wants to do, that is ready to accept him. So if they want to keep him, if they want to keep, I mean, they took a gamble on him when nobody was ready to take that. And after he came back from the FIFA suspension, nobody was ready to take him. But Inter Milan said, no, we're going to take you, and he has repaid the faith. And I think he's going to stay, even if it's at least a season. He's going to stay with Inter Milan. But what he did in the Champions League, a very, very commendable performance for him.
Just context for our very esteemed viewers, Andre Onana actually got a suspension for an alleged doping. Apparently, he took his wife's medications. That's what was reported, and he didn't quite figure the substances that were in there were under the list of blacklisted.
Ignorance is not an excuse.
But of course, redeemed himself on the bigger stage, and spare thought for Lukaku as well, who we thought was going to redeem himself. And I think in hindsight, Lukaku should have started that game, right? Over Edin Dzeko.
Not his fault. Yeah. Not his fault in time. I did not get an equalizer.
Congrats to Man City, who, you've got to say in the end, sportsmanship, that's what the game is all about. Even when you play better than the other team, you've got to always give credit to the winner.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what sports is all about. Right then, let's get away from the Champions League, even though we can never really get enough of it. Next year, we're back again in August, September, we're back in the group stage, and this is what football does to you.
Definitely.
Constantly relentless, is always there.
Always.
We're looking forward to the best team to do it again. Right, let's touch base with another story which has been very interesting. Because last week we were here, Real Madrid would come back strong, and just as the week finished, Jude Bellingham, we heard the announcement, has now committed his future
to Real
Madrid. £100 million upwards of that territory. And in a season, they rebuilt their midfield totally. Casemiro left last season, but they brought in a big summer signing. But what's going to happen there going forward? Because Benzema, of course, has left to the Saudi Arabia, football largesse that is happening at the moment. But Real Madrid will come back stronger next season, no?
Maybe, just maybe, if Kylian Mbappe gives them the word out, okay.
But Kylian Mbappe doesn't want to play as centre forward. He wants to play out on the left.
Out on the left.
Vini Jr. plays out on the left.
I don't want to bench Vini Jr. for any player right now.
Nobody.
Right now, I don't want to bench. I think it's a top three player right now in world football.
Yeah.
And when you look at the other side, they have a Rodrigo, and midfield Camavinga, Federico Valverde, Tchouaméni. Now they're adding Jude Bellingham to it. I think
how did they do it?
I think what they are doing
the
is
rest of the clubs just watch them rebuild their midfield with the best. Then 5 years on, they sell to United or Chelsea. They say,
I mean, if it doesn't work out, they sell to other clubs. I think what Florentino Perez is doing is not building another set of Galacticos, but now not buying the big names already, ready-made stars. I think Jude Bellingham is not a finished product yet.
Yeah.
Same with Tchouaméni, still with Camavinga, but there's something
I'll
there.
take him at my football club.
Yeah, okay. I'll also take him at Arsenal, by the way. But there's something there in name for Florentino Perez to see that, this is part of the team this is part of the player I want to build a team around. I think he's gradually facing out the Benzema of this world, the Varane, the Sergio Ramos, the Kroos and Modric. I think Kroos and Modric will probably play one more season with Real Madrid, and they will also leave. And I think kudos to Florentino Perez. I don't know if he has a sporting director. I think he has a sporting director that is doing that. So there's a boy from Brazil, Hendrick, still coming.
Still coming as well. The best thing about it is that these kids, Jude Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Valverde, have got a year or two to learn the ropes under the best.
Under the best, exactly.
Passing, talk to Kroos about that. Want to talk to how to control the game.
Talk to Modric.
Talk to Modric about that. So, Real Madrid, of course, going by the predictions, we would be back for more. Let's finish up the show with a tournament which we've been keeping a close eye on, the French Opens, which has been quite the tournament for Novak Djokovic, who, last year had a tumultuous time in Australia, came back, won the Australian Open this year. Now he's conquered more grounds in France, and he's now won his fourth French Open. Look, Rafa Nadal is the king of this clay, and that would never be taken away from him. But you always knew the moment Nadal pulled out of the tournament due to
the favorite
injury, the favorite
Novak
tag went on to Novak Djokovic, and I think he had a very interesting semi-final against Alcaraz, but the final against Casper Ruud was no match. I mean, incredible stuff, relentless, always kept going, didn't give a chance. Eventually won it.
I decided if they find a way to, they find a way to separate each other before getting to the final. I mean, it was going to be an interesting final, but somehow they found themselves in the semi-final. And Novak, winning it. Wins between Novak and Carlos Alcaraz was going to win the final. No disrespect to other players, but when you see quality, you definitely know quality. And I think Novak has done himself well. I won't put it past him winning the next Grand Slam, the Wimbledon, and maybe the US Open, and complete a Golden Slam, something he was not able to do in 2021. Or maybe he'll be able to do it this year. But congratulations to him.
Congrats to Novak Djokovic. 7-6, 6-3, 7-5, the final score. And of course, Iga Swiatek as well. Got to mention her winning another Grand Slam. She's actually won 4 Grand Slam titles, and 3 have come in the French Open. So she's building a bit of taking a leaf from the template of Rafa Nadal. Find the pitch, find the turf that you're really good at, and stack up the Grand Slam. Right. So congrats to Iga Swiatek as well, who's now one of the leading lights as far as women's tennis goes. We totally enjoyed this dash. We had to announce lots of winners today, which has pretty much made the show go in a flash. Thanks to all of viewers who have been out there enjoying the football season. There's more to come because the transfer stories never stop in the world and never stops here on Sports Pizza. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the video of the week. Bye-bye.